The South African Weather Service says the recent heat wave in the northeastern parts of the country broke temperature records in November. The hot conditions started on the 19th of November to this past Tuesday, November 28th. The 27th of November was the day the Weather Service recorded the highest temperature record. Joining us is Lehlogonolo Thobela, meteorologist at the South African Weather Service. Good to speak to you this evening. Now, temperature records, can you explain the significance of the recent heat wave in South Africa breaking those records for November? Just by how much?
Good evening, and yes, I think the first thing to look at is that we've had the heat wave for quite some time, which was extended from the 19th to the 28th of November. So we can expect that prolonged period, and it was only not mentioned to be only over Northern Cape, but also the Free State, the Northwest Province, as well as Gauteng and some parts of Limpopo and the eastern parts of the Eastern Cape Province. Now with that, then the heat wave also resulted in a record breaking in terms of the station called Grabis Falls, which is in the Northern Cape Province, which reached its new record of maximum temperatures, which is the 46.7 degrees Celsius, which then broke its record, which it had 46.2 degrees Celsius, which was I think it happened 2019. So as the record, it's just for the monthly record for the November month, and that's when the maximum temperatures was reached, and it broke its record from 2016. Now, the maximum temperature over the station still remains at 48.3 degrees Celsius. It's around 48 degrees Celsius throughout an average. That's the highest recorded temperatures of the station that has been recorded. But for November, it was just that breaking, and it's not only there that it broke. I mean, there were some stations in Kokstad that broke the record. So it was mainly in the Northern Cape, the Northwest Province, as well as some parts of Free State that broke much more of the maximum records for the November month.
What are the implications of more than 10 weather stations recording their highest temperature records on November 27th, as you've said? And how does this contribute to the overall trend of rising temperatures?
Yeah, I think the main thing is we are in an El Niño season, and in the El Niño season we're expecting maximum and minimal temperatures to be above normal in terms of what would usually have in summer. So as in El Niño, we're expecting less, or rather below normal rainfall for the central and the eastern parts of the country. Usually when El Niño is there, we know that we'll receive less rain. And with the temperatures rising, then we can expect much more drier conditions over the central and the eastern parts. The significance of the heat wave, then that's when we started seeing the breaking of records of new areas measuring different temperatures from what it had in past 2 or 3 years ago, which then shows that yes, with El Niño being there, the persistence of temperatures rising not only over the central parts but the Pacific Ocean, where the ENSO is related to where it results in a high, or rather Pacific temperatures where in the sea that they rise, then it results in such conditions like what we have in the El Niño in the southern hemisphere, which then might also then in a prolonged period of time might also result in drought, because then the less rainfall you have, it results in drier conditions and more heat resulting in drought.
Now, that heat wave that we experienced, I think, lasted a little over a week. You have forecast, in fact, you are going to confirm that there's another heat wave on the horizon. Speak to us about, do you have an idea of how hot those temperatures are going to be and how long the heat wave is likely to last?
So, I mean, with the heat wave, it's usually a threshold. I mean, in definition, a heat wave is when maximum temperatures at a particular town are expected to exceed or be at 5 degrees Celsius above the average maximum temperature of the hottest month. And it's usually for that particular area, as well as that then is expected to persist for 3 days or more. So if you look at Gauteng is expected to experience a heat wave starting from the 2nd, which is tomorrow, and spreading all over to Tuesday Tuesday as things stands for now. And over Limpopo, it's expected to start from Sunday, spreading over to Tuesday. They all break on Tuesday into Wednesday. And yes, we have that criteria. So if you look at Gauteng, we're expecting Pretoria to reach the hottest temperature to be about 33 degrees. Johannesburg should be at 32, and Vereeniging should be at 33. So those are the hottest temperatures expected for the for the coming days from the tomorrow into Tuesday, and that's the threshold that is Gauteng. So you'd have that it will be different in the Northern Cape, where you'd expect Uppington to probably be at 40 degrees or higher for that to be within the threshold of the heat wave conditions. So for tomorrow over Gauteng as well as Limpopo, Limpopo then is expected from Sunday, but for tomorrow we're expecting the heat wave to start over Gauteng and spread all over Tuesday, which then with the temperatures, and well, the forecasted temperatures for now will be 15 and 33 over Pretoria. Johannesburg will be 14 and 32, as well as Vereeniging being 16 and 33.
So let's talk a little bit about El Nino in the coming months. What specific precautions are recommended, and how might El Nino impact the weather conditions?
El Nino being, in fact, I mean, when we're expecting El Nino state, it's when we expect drier conditions, hotter temperatures, below normal rainfall, and with the seasonal forecast showing that the statistical analysis and the ENSO as a whole is showing uncertainty in how it performs between now and the end of summer, it still suggests that the central parts of the country will be dry, and much more of the northern parts still remain dry, but doesn't exclude the extreme weather conditions that might happen and bring much more of disastrous weather, like terms of severe thunderstorms, which might result in hail or other forms of heavy rain, as well as some extreme weather during thunderstorms. So with the El Nino then being there, it also brings much more of the drier conditions, but it doesn't exclude the extreme weather that we might receive, especially over the central and the eastern parts of the country. The southwestern areas remain dry, as we are still in El Nino state, and not much of precipitation is expected to be over the southwestern areas, which would include the central and the western parts of the Northern Cape, the most parts of the Western Cape province, as well as some parts of the western areas of the Eastern Cape province.
Now, it has been said that we're expecting normal to below normal rainfall. Is that correct, is the first part of the question? And if it is correct, are we expecting a drought this season?
Well, it is correct that for below normal rainfall is expected, especially over the central and the southwestern areas of the country as a whole. The eastern parts, we still yet to experience some rainfall, especially now that we're still in summer and we're moving through. Some thunderstorms bring in much more of it, but should we have prolonged times of less rainfall or below normal rainfall, and less of rainfall falling on the ground, might result in drought. But for now, it's not in the cards where it has been declared that we have drought. But should we have a prolonged period of time where we have hot conditions with below normal rainfall, or rather less precipitation as a whole, we might also end up being in drought conditions.
So let's come back to some of the extreme weather conditions. I think 10 days ago, certain parts of Gauteng experienced thunderstorms and hail, and the size of some of those hailstones were larger than marbles. I think as large as golf balls in some instances. Can we expect more of this in the coming months? And does it allow an evening out, for instance, of you've got the absence of rain, you've got a lot of heat, and then all of a sudden you get this extreme on the other end, which is hailstorms and a lot of rain, more than you would normally expect.
Yeah, weather extremes are related to severity of the weather. May it be severe thunderstorms. I mean, severe thunderstorms bring not only heavy rain, but when you issue a warning for severe thunderstorms, the person should expect damaging winds, strong updrafts. With strong updrafts, then it results in hail, and hail not just being small amounts of hail, but could also result in a large amount of hail. We also experience heavy rain that might lead to floods, And not only limited to that, at some instance, in when we have a very, very severe thunderstorm, you might also experience some tornadoes, as we have seen in areas over Mpumalanga and parts of KwaZulu-Natal, as it has been in the past months also. So yes, with the high rate of El Nino being still possible, and a positive IOD, which is the Indian Ocean Dipole, being positive, it also assists in terms of the extreme weather conditions that happen. So it looks to it as, when we say we have extreme weather conditions in areas which are experiencing drier conditions, like when you move north of the country, would always been a case where we're saying the northern parts are drier in conditions, but when they have severity of the weather that comes there, it results in very extreme weather, which results in some destructions in some parts of the area. So yes, we are yet to experience much more of severe weather for as long as we're in summer, and with every warning that we issue, people should take it seriously, because we never know where the danger might be, and you can never take for granted with the warnings.
So is this weather pattern affecting just South Africa, or is it also affecting our neighbours within the SADC region?
Yes, I mean the southern parts, southern hemisphere, usually with El Nino conditions, it brings about drier conditions. But in some areas where you would go in parts in the northern parts, El Nino then brings the opposite, which would bring a lot of rain, and in some instances result in really heavy floods, like how you would see in India and areas that side. That's when you'd have heavy floods due to that El Nino. But over the countries like in Africa, when we have El Nino, then we expect below normal rainfall, as well as higher temperatures, which then result in conditions that we say that might result in drought. And I mean, with drought conditions, you can expect, you can imagine how farmers struggle with the dry conditions and the less amount of rainfall. So it's not only limited to the public, but also it questions the food security and how we are to receive any terms of farming, and the animals that are there, what do they eat in such dry conditions. So sometimes it's not only limited to us getting heat waves, but also in thought process as to what happens to production around economically, as well as mentally, as well as also we move on to health conditions.
Lehlogonolo, Thobela, meteorologist at the South African Weather Service. Appreciate your time this evening.